Hi everyone, thank you very much for stopping by and returning to the old world. There's been quite a lot actually happen over the last few weeks. We've seen the launch of the Warriors of Chaos, and we've had news from the Nova Open. Yes, they haven't released new exciting models, but we have seen a time frame. Information about when we're going to see the next drops, even if it is only in quite general terms. So let's have a look at some of this news. Let's start with the Warriors of Chaos. So on the 31st of August, the Warriors of Chaos became available for pre-order. And quite unusually for me, I was actually available at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, which meant I've been able to pick up a couple of items. What have I bought? Well, I have bought the Warriors of Chaos book, the Arcane Journal. I've also taken the opportunity to order a copy of the Orc and Goblin book and some Night Goblins. More on that I have no doubt in due course. I've not commented particularly around the models that were going to be released on the 31st of August. That information only really became available a couple of weeks ago, and I covered it then, so I thought doing another video on it would pretty much be overkill. But aside from models being released, and obviously the Arcane Journals, etc., we have had a few more articles about all things Warriors of Chaos. We've had a confirmation, for example, of the two Armies of Infamy. Now, we knew one was going to be more order heavy. And we know a little bit about a couple of units, or upgrade unit types, that are going to make it into the book. These are the Huskarls and Berserkers, adding a little bit more elite punch to a largely marauder force. And we've also seen that, aside from the Warriors of the Sea sort of force, we're also getting the second Army of Infamy being the Heralds of Darkness. This is described by Games Workshop as an ultra-elite army depicting bands of cavalry roaming the Chaos Wastes and preying on the weak. Now, Warriors of Chaos, from what I've seen so far, are already pretty much an ultra-elite army. The only Warrior of Chaos list I've come across in a competitive environment, to be fair, I've only done one tournament, so I won't have seen many Warriors of Chaos armies, only had a handful of drops. 2 units of warriors, a chimera, a chariot, some characters, and that was about your lot. So an elite Chaos Warrior army that's more elite than that just sounds like it's going to be absolutely tiny. Really small required body count. I think it's also briefly worth commenting that in the article about the new almanac on Warhammer Community released on the 30th of August, there is a little bit of time talking about the power of Chaos Lords on dragons and how strong they are, but how they also do have counters. I think Games Workshop probably become quite aware of the fact that dragons are incredibly popular. And yes, whilst there are counters to them, there is a definite nod to Bretonia and their virtue in the article. For the large part, it probably requires another Lord on a dragon to deal with them. They mention Empire Flagellants, but let's face it, Empire Flagellants, they're really not that good. So I don't really expect them to do a proper job on a Lord on dragon. If nothing else, the Lord can move around them pretty easily. Final note on the Warriors of Chaos, and again something I do find quite interesting, is the shift away from monogod. So those of us with memories of 7th, 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy Battles, yes, you could mix and match different marks to your heart's content, and you can still do that now. But there's a real push here from Games Workshop in a very short statement, really saying this is the time of Chaos Undivided, and the expectation is armies will not be monogod but will mix and match from across the different marks of Chaos. Let's move on and let's now talk about the timelines for future releases. We know that the Empire is coming next, and I think that makes a lot of sense when you think how closely related they are when compared to most of the factions in the storyline to the Warriors of Chaos. A lot of powerful figures in the Warhammer Chaos lore, the storyline, they're people that have made their way from the Empire. It's the Empire which is fighting in Kislev the great wars against Chaos. Yes, they're supported by the dwarves, etc., but it's very much an Empire story, particularly with the rise of Magnus the Pious. However, and it's a big however, we're told that the next Arcane Journal, that of the Empire, will not be released until 2025. We're looking at a good 4 months now before a new army drops. That will be followed by the High Elves, and we have no idea whenabouts exactly that will drop, but I would expect at least a month or two. Now, does this mean that nothing will appear for Warhammer before Christmas? I don't think that is necessarily the case. We've seen with the various armies released so far that actually they do get multiple drops of miniatures, Games Workshop not releasing everything in one foul sweep. So I'd expect to see that again with a few more miniature releases, maybe 1 or 2 coming before Christmas. I think it's interesting, the release of these timelines, however, because I think they are kind of a way of targeting the disappointment, the annoyance around the big delays we've seen in the second part of the year. What do I mean by this? Well, Dwarves, we've seen stuff since, well, the day the game got released. We got teased through the social media accounts by Games Workshop saying Dwarves are coming shortly and stuff like that. As the weeks continued, could drive on by. Now they've made it very clear, 2025. So yeah, as I said, 4 months, that's a long time. It's not great. I would have liked to have seen a quicker release schedule, try and get things over the line, get it done, and then you can move on to expanding the storyline, expanding the ranges, if it turns out that actually targets have been met and there's enough of a appetite within Games Workshop to further support Warhammer The Old World. But that's not going to be the case. So the one positive we can draw from this, let's face it, is at least we know we're not going to get any more books this year. We don't have to get overly excited about things, and it keeps the hype to a manageable level until Games Workshop themselves are willing to release the hype again into the world. If there's one thing Games Workshop is very good at, it is building hype. And I do think that if you're then looking at a 4+ month gap between books being released, there is a chance that hype could build of its own accord to a level where, quite frankly, the wheels come off the bus somewhat, and there's hype turning into horrendous levels of disappointment because people have built up false expectations. The timeline should prevent that, hopefully, from happening. I'll finish with a few concluding thoughts. It's good to see Warriors of Chaos getting their book. They are going to be really important to the Games Workshop story here, to the Warhammer story here, because let's face it, everything that's going on in the world right now is the calm before the storm when Averton Cull marches south. The lieutenants of Chaos, the woes that will become the lieutenants, are scrapping it out. The main guy himself, he's going to be gathering his forces. The world is really not knowing what's going on north of that mysterious border, and is in the grasp of that dramatic irony where we as the players, as the gamers, we know what's coming down the tracks, but the models we're using to represent the characters in the story absolutely do not. And whilst I am disappointed not to be seeing a glut of Old World produce, I'm fully, as I say, aware it is a specialist game, and at least they're warning us that we are going to see a bit of a delay. So tell me, what do you think of the information we've seen over the last week or so? Are you excited by it? Do you think Games Workshop were right to announce the delay until 2025? Or have they overdone it by building it up through the Nova Open preview? Let me know down in the comments below. All that remains for me to say is thank you very much for listening. I am returned to the old world. Have a great day.